I'm an amateur gardener and I love to plant things and to see what I can grow. But you could argue that my gardening method is that whatever survives one year is what I plant again the next year. So it's a pretty brutal process, but at least you end up knowing exactly what will grow in Texas climate. I have sort of a low-level obsession with growing my own tomatoes, but it's very hard to grow tomatoes in Texas, and it takes a lot of vigilance. So I'm always circling by to see if they need water, because if you miss a day of watering them, then the whole plant is going to die. But the problem with circling by once a day to make sure that the soil is damp is that I'm constantly checking to see, are there any tomatoes yet? First did the blooms come, then did the blooms set, and is the fruit going to grow? And then is something trying to eat the fruit? So I'm constantly obsessing over these tomato plants all summer long, assuming that I can keep them alive. And here's something that's definitely true of the growth cycle of plants. You cannot rush the process. You have to wait. Fruit is yielded in due season. To be a farmer, you have to be patient. Jesus knew this, and he taught on this a lot. He told a lot of stories to his disciples to illustrate spiritual truths that had to do with growing things. And so it's not surprising that his half-brother James goes along a similar vein to talk to us about the virtue of patience. James 5:7-8 says this: "Be patient, therefore, brothers and sisters, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand." James commends his listeners to be patient, and they're going through some difficult times. So he's not just telling them, be patient in simple things, although we should certainly know that that's a virtue. But he's telling them, be patient in hard things, because there's a certain harvest that's going to come at a later point. Probably the best reason that we should desire to be patient people is because we serve a patient God. If you are having a difficult time bearing with a difficult circumstance or a difficult person, if you're feeling impatience with the process or with the relationship, think about the God you serve, the God who has been patient throughout the scriptures with a people who were rebellious in the Old Testament, with disciples who didn't understand what was going on during Christ's ministry. There are any number of stories in the scriptures where God would have had every right to have just eliminated an annoying or a rebellious figure from the text, and yet he doesn't. He stays his hand. Why? Because he endures patiently with us. So we then, as those who bear his image, should strive to bear patiently with one another and to bear patiently when we're in trial. Now, it doesn't mean that it will be easy. It doesn't mean that we say, oh, well, I'm just going to grin and bear it. But it means that we endure, understanding that there is a harvest that's coming. I think I love gardening because it's a constant reminder that good things come to those who wait. But we live in an instant gratification world. And when we watch TV shows where plot lines resolve quickly in 30 minutes, and when we get our food when we drive through the drive-thru with no effort on our part, and when Amazon drops the package on our front porch 30 seconds after we think of it in our brains, we can begin to come to a place where we don't want to endure patiently with much of anything. But Christ endured. Christ was patient in affliction, and he is our model. If we are not good at being patient in the small things, we should not be surprised that it's difficult to be patient when life throws harder things our way. But we can endure patiently in difficult circumstances or in difficult relationships when we remember that God is dealing patiently with us, has dealt patiently with us in the past, that he's a God who sees the beginning from the end, and we can trust him to see us through. There is a harvest. What circumstance or relationship needs your patience this week? And how can you bear the image of God in that circumstance or relationship in such a way that you reflect Christ?